Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no outside issues. My name's Anthony. I'm a 7th-year doctoral student in clinical psych, an addict and alcoholic, another bozo on the bus. And I missed you.
Yeah.
And I care about you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm LouiLou, and my pronouns are he and him. I'm a former Miss Castro Country Club. I am in recovery for crystal meth and alcohol, and I am always in search of balance. Yes, and each week we will provide and create a brave space where we can engage in conversations around topics of recovery.
Our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for more people in recovery by tackling issues sometimes used to separate us.
Yes, but before we do that, please like, share, comment this episode, and comment it, rate. I noticed something else in another. Rate us.
It does say rate now.
Okay.
Yeah, so now the disclaimer. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on at the CCC are ours alone. We do not represent anyone but ourselves. The material and information shared here is for general information purposes only. In other words, we are just friends behind a mic here to entertain you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Waka, waka, waka.
Waka, 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 waka.
I don't know. It just
Isn't that wasn't that from Muppet Babies?
Fozzie Bear.
Waka, yeah,
No,
Fozzie.
That's Fozzie. Yeah, waka, waka.
It's been a while, so I have certainly missed you.
I know. I missed you all too. It's like, I think this is. Yeah, I love our little breaks because they're necessary, but I suffer when I'm not with you all.
Okay.
Is that
sincere?
Did it sound sincere?
Mm-mm.
Okay, because if it didn't, then I didn't do my job.
The break was necessary, but I'm really excited. Folks might remember that a few months ago we talked about Sober Solution Sundays, and we were going to hold ourselves accountable. So we actually got all of our thinking together, and so that should be coming down the pike within, we'll say this week.
Yes,
we'll start doing that this week. So look for stuff from us on Instagram via video or YouTube.
Maybe Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, these cute little clips. We'll be answering questions you didn't ask us and telling you what we think anyway.
Exactly, because we're both Virgos. It's like
we are both Virgos.
It's like because I know what you need more than you know.
Yeah. Hey, our birthdays are coming up.
Oh, I know. Isn't that exciting?
Is yours August?
August, yes.
Yeah, mine's September.
Yeah, August 28th, but it's like really close by.
September 1st.
Yeah, see, we're right there.
Yeah, we are right
Bam.
there. How have you been since we've been on?
Really good. Just staying busy, staying out of trouble, living, existing. I have been telling anybody who'll listen that's like, I have been invited to be a guest on a podcast this week.
Oh, tell us more about that.
Well, the podcast, basically, when I introduce myself as a former Miss Castro Country Club. So I do drag every now and then, and I host specifically for Living Sober, the world's oldest gay conference. And so we got a lot of folks there. And I believe that someone saw my alter ego, Minnie, I'm wearing the shirt, and thought, oh my, it would be really nice to talk about drag and confidence, not constant. So let me see. It's like the name of the podcast, really cool name, is Mind Power Meets Mystic. And so as soon as I have more information, I'll advertise it. But it sounds interesting. It's like I'm going to kind of zoom in and have that conversation.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
How about you?
I've been pretty good. I've been talking about writing for months now. A lot of things have gotten sent in. Now I'm just kind of getting together the pre-doc materials together. I'm really just trying to push this stuff along. I'm so ready to just be done with school. I'm ready to plant my roots somewhere. I'm ready to build. I'm ready. I'm just so ready. I'm done living this grad student life.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you ready?
I'm so I could not be more ready. I've been so stressed out.
That's where that boom.
Yeah. You missed your cue, Steven. So there it goes. So today, shall we talk about today's topic?
Absolutely.
All right. So today's topic is gaslighting. Gaslighting is one of these terms that's been thrown around for a while, and a lot of people use it, and I don't think maybe they don't know what they're saying. But so I just wanted to let people know what gaslighting is, kind of like the history of the term. So gaslighting actually comes from this movie from 1944. The movie was called Gaslight. Okay, and there was this husband, I think his name was Gregory, and there was a wife named Paula. Anyway, there was a husband. And what he would do is he would change the gas lights so that the light would go down. right? Except that when he would do that, he would deny it to his wife. So his wife would say, like, what's going on with the lights? Are the lights flickering? And he would say no, right? And so basically he was trying to like convince her that like to question her own reality, right? And so you can understand where gaslighting comes from, is this idea. It's a type of psychological manipulation, and it's a type of an emotional abuse. For folks who want to read more about it, there's this great article. It's called Gaslighting Explained by Robin Stern. It was an article featured in Vox magazine. A lot of great details in there. But basically, gaslighting is a form of emotional psychological abuse and manipulation. And basically, the goal of gaslighting, when someone is employing it, is to get you to question your reality, right? And so gaslighting, we'll talk about it as it relates to recovery, of course, but gaslighting, you know, it happens in couples, it happens in work environments, it can happen in casual situations, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So that's like the origin of where gaslighting comes from. So some ways that you'll see gaslighting happen is like sometimes like what'll happen is there'll be a denial of what your reality is.
Uh-huh.
So you'll say, for example, this is what happened, and then like the gaslighter would be like, actually, that's not what happened, right? Or they'll contradict what you're saying. They'll say like, well, actually, but actually the opposite of what you said happened is what actually happened, right?
Absolutely.
You hear this, so this sometimes shows up in like discourses about race, for example.
Oh, all the time.
Discourses about race or discourses about abuse. You see this in like in abusive relationships a lot. Like, that's not what you said, or like that kind of thing. Discrediting and undermining someone. So saying to someone like, so this is something that also happens in that movie.
Or that nonsense about like, I don't believe you. Explain. Tell me when I've done that. Show me when I've yeah.
Right. And so they're like the tweezing, right? And so the idea is like to take apart someone's reality, right? Because if someone, that's such a good example. Yeah, that's such a good example. Tell me of a time that I lied to you. You know what I mean? Or tell me of a time that I like did. Yes, of course. So discrediting and undermining. So in the movie, one of the things he does is he convinces her, or he tells her that she's not good with money. You know, like you're not good with money. You're not good with money, right? Same thing can happen in relationships. Well, you know, you're just like a really sensitive person, so you wouldn't understand. Or, you know, it's just, this is really more about your stuff than it is other people's stuff, right? So there's that kind of stuff that happening, blaming and shifting responsibility, right? So that's some of the ways that it shows up.
I've shared in the past about a roommate that I had before I left, and I called her the queen of gaslighting, and she was comments like, you know what, to me it seems as though you shouldn't live with other people. I don't think you're good at living. I don't, you know, I'm like,
yeah,
it's you. It's you,
right?
And
right. And it's crazy because when it's happening, it's hard to figure out, like, is this me? You know what I mean? Like, if you're like, is it me? Like,
absolutely.
Is there something wrong with me? Right. And I think that's a way, like, when it comes to spaces of recovery, and like recovery spaces are ways that I think sometimes, like, when we talk about character defects, that character defects can be used as like in conversation as a way of hurting someone or like manipulating a situation, right? I think that's why it's really important, just as an aside, I think that's why it's so important to work with people you trust. You know,
you mean in recovery, or
yeah, in
anywhere?
recovery?
Because I was going to say,
well, I mean,
like,
in any environment,
where
but
where the gaslighting has shown up in very subtle, kind of nuanced ways. When my employer, and when I'm dealing with employees, and my employer says that I have a snarky way of presenting things, and it frustrates me because it's my tone. It's my tone. There's no malice or no intention there, and it's caused me to kind of try to fix something that didn't need to be fixed.
Tone policing.
Yes, exactly. It's tone policing.
And
and I've gotten to the point with that where I make it a point now to let them know, I appreciate, I'm working on me, because they also know that I'm in recovery. I'm working on me, but I have a hard time with you telling me that my tone is snarky when it's my tone. It's what you're telling me is that, to me, it just drives me crazy. Also, the worst is when I hear it from them or other folks, and the same kind of attention is not applied to it.
Sure.
I'm a shady Virgo. I will call you on it and say, "Oh, so is this? I wanted an example of snarky. Is this what you were talking about?" Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a perfect example. Like, especially so workplace environments, you can see that stuff happen, especially when there are power dynamics involved. You can see gaslighting happening. I think most people experience gaslighting in interpersonal relationships because I feel like in order for gaslighting, maybe I don't know if this is true. So, but I think the relationship that's most kind of fertile for gaslighting is one that's very intimate, because
yeah,
if you're close to someone, there's a way that we listen to people that we're close to that we don't listen to in
yeah.
strangers. You know what I
I
mean?
think you're right. I don't think some rando could just try to gaslight me because no work. I'm all, who are you?
Right.
Get out of my space.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
thanks for sharing, but I'm not interested in hearing. It
Right.
is intimate, it's personal,
Mhm.
and there's a level of trust that is there,
Right.
or that is developing.
Right. And so I think in recovery spaces, like when it comes to recovery, there is a way that like a gaslighting situation or an environment where there is like gaslighting can impact a person's recovery, you know? So like, especially when people are coming in and they're feeling extra vulnerable, and especially if people are coming in, they're feeling extra vulnerable and they're really wanting to do the work, and they live in a toxic work environment, they live in a toxic living environment. I can see that person like struggling with, for example, like anxiety or depression that comes from like the gaslighting that might happen at home, or like feeling guilt and self-blame, right? That's something that a lot of people in recovery that I know experience, right? Like when they finally like they start to sober up and they realize like, oh shit, look at all the things that I did to myself and other people. There's this way that like that self-blame or guilt can be kind of like used to
Absolutely. It's like, I
manipulate a
think
situation.
it's tough getting past that place where you start to trust yourself.
Right.
And yeah, I was going to, with regards to recovery, a place that gaslighting occurs, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. It speaks to our tagline: there are no outside issues.
Right.
When you have an issue that is something that is causing you discomfort, or whatever you want to talk about it, and maybe you have a sponsor or someone who doesn't necessarily appreciate or has no way of validating, so will kind of make you believe that this is something you shouldn't be talking about.
Right. Right.
Well, yeah.
Right. There was something I wanted to. So in Robin Stern's, we have a comment in a second, but one of the things that Robin Stern wrote in her article, she talks about how experts have postulated that women were trained to long and hunger for relationships and connection, a conditioning that made them vulnerable to exploitation of their attachment, which is exactly what gaslighting is. Right. So there's a way in which, in this case, she's talking about culture and the way culture has influenced the raising or the development of women. And there's a way in which there are certain, for example, maybe social justice spaces, or when we talk about political spaces, where the human need to connect and the human need to want to be in relationship can actually be used as a way of manipulating someone, of gaslighting them, right? We see this with cults and stuff, like with love bombing. I don't know where the hell this conversation is going.
So we do have a comment.
Yeah, we do have a comment.
Ooh,
Jaylon, codependency also plays a role in the ability to be gaslit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Jaylon. Nice to see your face pop up on here. Codependency, I mean, that codependency is like that's especially fertile ground for gaslighting.
And can I say something about this idea of codependence? I think that just like with character assets gone awry or whatever, healthy codependency is not a bad thing. I don't think it is. I think that we need each other. But when it gets to a point where I trust you so much that I don't trust myself, or I'm not able to trust what I'm thinking, that's when, that is the one area when you cause me to question myself, and I get to a place where I can look at it and see what it really is. That is, for me, the ultimate sin. It's unforgivable, and I will back away and never forgive you.
I have actually a list of, well, I was going to get to that later.
Okay.
Still, but like that's,
we'll put that in the parking lot.
We'll put that in the parking lot. But there are some things, I have a list of things that also from the Robin Stern article about like ways that you can recognize if you're being gaslit, and one of those things is like when someone's making you question yourself. Like that's a way of checking in with yourself. Like, why am I questioning myself? Like a second ago, I was convinced, but what's going on right now? You know?
And going back to especially early recovery, I mean, you know, they say the opposite of addiction is connection. And I want to be a part of. And sometimes, and I think about when I was in my active addiction, I kept my mouth shut. I did not, I didn't want people to, I don't want people to see that I thought it was a fraud, and I don't want people to see that. And there were folks who probably were supporting that in how they were treating me, because I didn't know how to ask to be treated any other way. But I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but I was going somewhere.
No.
I was going down a dark road.
No, it's perfect. Well, there's a quote from the article that I keep mentioning. She quotes, I don't know how to say this guy, Zawadzki in a 2014 article on the topic. Zawadzki, is that what that is?
That sounds familiar.
Okay.
Hi, Zawadzki.
Well, basically the quote is like, gaslighting techniques radically undermine another person, that they have nowhere left to stand from which to disagree, no standpoint from which their words might constitute genuine disagreement. So it's basically like taking away a person's ability to fight back.
Yeah.
Right. And so it kind of creates a situation where a person is defenseless. Right. Nothing you can say can convince me that like I'm wrong. Right. And so
also, if you're not if you're a person who does not like conflict and maybe clams up to begin with, it can really do a number on you.
Yeah. Gosh, it sure can. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is like, what is like the function of gaslighting, and like, where does it come from? Right. And like, I think go ahead.
Lighting gas. No.
But you missed your cue, Steven. There you go.
Oh yeah. So we keep saying names. We have our producer Brandon, but we also have our co-producer, our up and coming producer, as
associate producer
Steven.
Yeah. Steven, who's missing cues.
Yeah, that's okay.
but doing great.
Actually, no, he's doing really well, because Brandon's never done this, because Brandon only does what Brandon wants to do.
Are you gaslighting Brandon? Okay, but so what creates a gaslighter, right? So
what creates a gaslighter?
So so people are not necessarily, you aren't innately a gaslighter, right? Like that's not something that we do. And gaslighting it can be seen as like this adaptive thing, right? Like a person might, for example, they can't handle conflict. So it's their way of like, they found somewhere along their lives, like if they lie or they manipulate a situation, that they can, reduce their anxiety and take control of the situation, right? And if you do that long enough, you find yourself surrounded by people who are willing to let you do that to them, right? But it starts off, I think, for a lot of people as this way of regaining control and in social situations. Have you found yourself, like, when it comes to like recovery or recovery spaces, have you found that ever come up? Like where you feel like there's like I hear sometimes it happening like at a meeting level where like there's a bit of gaslighting.
Well, I found in personal situations where anytime, okay, so I feel like anytime there's a person I don't fuck with and everybody else is cool with that person, like I've gotten to the place where I just keep my mouth shut, because I don't want anybody to change my opinion of how or cause me to question why I have a problem. Because for me, it's like, if I feel some sort of way, that's real.
Okay, this is interesting.
I get to trust that feeling.
Okay.
And figure it out for myself. But if I've got you telling me through your words that this person's this and that or whatever, it's like, and that, maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. Because we do say all the time, it's like, if enough people tell you, or you have enough of situations with people, then it's probably you. But it's like, I'm all, what if I'm right all the time?
Yeah.
I don't mean
what that reminds me of is that I feel like addicts and alcoholics are some of the best attorneys I've ever met. Like not actual attorneys, but because like, if you want to convince yourself of an idea, you can find the support for it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, when I was talking to you about the thing earlier before we started, so for people listening, so I was on I'm in a bunch of threads on like WhatsApp and in my phone. And I came across a photo that was connected to someone's account. And I had such mixed feelings about this photo. And I went to Lewis and I go, Lewis, this is the photo that I have the issue with. And Lewis's response, which was very invalidating, said, well, Lewis's response was, Anthony, I think that's your stuff. And I go, listen, I 100% get that might be my stuff. So
was that gaslighting?
I don't know,
Okay.
but the point is that like I know where to go to. I know the people to go to show them that same picture to get them to side with like the other part of my head.
I think that's why you bring it to me, because she knows I'm just like.
Well, I mean, I bring it to you. Well, to this point about like, like when you, because I've had that experience too, where you're like, I don't like this person, but then everyone and their mother loves that person.
Oh God. And then you see them all the time. That's if I'm having issues with people, my higher power puts them everywhere. Like all of a sudden, everybody looks like them. It's like you've got to deal with that, Lewis. So anyway, that's sidebar.
No, that's not a sidebar. I think that's very on topic. I think well, because we can also gaslight ourselves, right? I mean, that's the other part of all of this is that. So there are certainly like I know, for example, that I sometimes have these like strong reactions to certain personality types. So for example, let's take Exhibit A, the person whose picture I showed you on my phone. I have such a strong reaction to that person, and I'm like so judgmental whenever I see them around, and I'm always like, why do you wear clothes like that? Why do you behave this way? In my head, I never say this shit out loud because I know better. I'm not that kind of person. And then I thought to myself, I was talking to Lewis, I was like, Lewis, maybe I'm jealous. Like maybe I'm jealous, I don't know that I actually am, but the most unhealthy parts of me will feed that part of my brain. You know what I mean? And in that way, can I kind of gaslight myself? Or like
you might be gaslighting yourself into thinking that you're jealous, because there's an energy that this individual has that can come off a little arrogant. I
always feel like whenever I'm around this person, I always feel like they're exuding sexuality, and like I always feel like I have to bathe afterward. Like I always feel like I don't know, I just sometimes
love it. You feel dirty.
I just feel very hot. Like I didn't consent to this. I didn't
oh, I love it.
So and I so and I also similarly, okay, here's I think something that's kind of been up for me for a while now, right? So one of the things that I've been struggling with a lot recently has been like, what is gay male culture, right? So I can remember when I was 14, I came out and I was so excited to be gay, and I was so excited to meet other gay men, and that's what it was. It was just like I just wanted to meet other gay people. And now I'm 38 and I live literally in the fucking gay capital of the world. And everywhere I turn, everything feels like it's hypersexualized, right? Everywhere I turn, there's a new flyer up with someone showing their dong against some like briefs, or like there's just so much nakedness and there's so much sexuality, and you can't walk by a store without seeing a fake dick in the window, right? And so there's a part of me that's like, I get really angry and I'm like, am I a bad gay? You know what I mean? Like, am I like, or am I a self-loathing gay? Is this internalized homophobia? So I have all of these thoughts come up for me because I'm like, why can't? And then I'm like, oh, this is because I'm a sex and love addict. Like I'm a sex addict, and that's why I'm having this like really strong reaction in order to protect myself. And then there's another part of me that's like, no, or maybe this is just like, maybe this hypersexuality like isn't healthy, And then I think about the way that kind of like translates into like the recovery rooms, and how there's like, we've had conversations in the past about how, we've had to talk about consent in the rooms, and we've had to talk about sexual assault in the rooms, etc. And so I that's certainly a place in my life where this kind of stuff comes up, where I'm like, what's right? What's wrong? Like, what is the truth?
And then you have a conversation with someone who doesn't think that. And that's where the gaslighting comes in. It's like, I think that it's healthy that we have these conversations, because you're right. It's like, there's a lot of hypersexualization, whatever, but is it bad, or is
right?
Is
that's my whole point.
It just is what it is.
Right. Well, I've had this recurring issue happen to me, and like, I don't even want to touch this, so I'm not really going to touch it, but I've had this like recurring issue happen for me in certain like situations. And it's happened enough to where I'm like, maybe I'm the problem.
Mm.
You know what I mean? But also like, I was like, anyway, the
It's
point is,
me. Hi,
I'm the problem. It's
me.
me. Okay. So
I don't know any other songs, so don't. I'm not a
Swiftie,
I'm not a Swiftie.
a Swiffer,
A Swiffer, exactly. That's more like it.
a Swiffer. The other, I wanted to say a little bit more about like what are some of the like emotional consequences of being gaslit. Is like, so there, like I said, there's anxiety and depression, there's guilt and shame. It can lead to like PTSD, right? If it happens repeatedly, it can start shaping how a person relates to other people. It can lead to like chronic stress and burnout, especially in work environments.
Low self-esteem and lack of confidence.
Of course. Yep. Trust issues and difficulty forming relationships, emotional detachment, and it can create apathy for sure.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of steer a little bit to be kind of more recovery focused. So I think what happens in recovery spaces when people are coming in and they're feeling really vulnerable. Do you remember what it felt like, what you felt like coming in?
I was so happy and relieved. Like, I think that it for me it was a gift. I realized that's not the case with a lot of folks. I had an answer. I mean, I think before I wasn't certain, and so there was relief, but there was still like, I still had my other issues as far as like not really believing that people want to be there. I didn't trust. It's lack of trust. I didn't trust when people said keep coming back. I was talking to a fellow and how early recovery I would take all of these greeting commitments because I figured that you would have to say hi to me. It's like, yeah.
You know what makes me sad but also kind of is encouraging is like how many of us come in feeling that way, and how many people to this day feel that way.
Absolutely.
I think I feel like I wish maybe that people talked more about that stuff in meetings sometimes, because like that's the stuff that can be really relatable, and it isn't that we're like always there, but I think that for me at least it's always been very helpful. Like when I hear the person with 20 plus years say to me, I'm fucking crazy, I wake up in my brain's like I can't go to, one of the things I can't like go to my brain, go to my thoughts like unsupervised, right? Like that, hearing that kind of stuff is very helpful for me, because like I sometimes am in denial about being an addict and an alcoholic. Like I'll have like crazy thoughts and feelings and I'll think, oh, this is just me, and it's not just me. It's literally like every single person I've ever met in recovery who's working a program has like the self-awareness that says, actually, no, like I deal with this stuff on a daily basis.
Absolutely. That's a danger with time and life expanding. Life expanding all of a sudden is like, oh yeah. There's that line in the big book. It's like, maybe I'd been making too big a deal about this. And every now and then I slip into that, and then I'm reminded, oh wait, no, you're obsessing over certain things. It's like that's not a normal brain.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think maybe the takeaway there is that like as an addict and an alcoholic, I think I'm especially vulnerable to certain things.
Oh, absolutely.
And
so somebody's nonsense about you, because it's like until you get like we're constantly working on getting to a place where we're accepting who we are, trusting who we are, believing in who we are. But early on, it's like, hello, if I hadn't been showing up for myself, and I believe in getting better, and somebody it's like that relationship with your family. Like, like I get it that I'm doing this work and this is how it's showing up to you, and you may not believe it. And you may never let me not believe it, but I love that idea that we are of God. So, I'm going to apologize and tell you that I'm doing something different. You can choose to believe it or not, but not if it doesn't. People don't get there right away. It takes a while.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I think it's so important to have. That's what makes steps 2 and 3 so important. Like we need something that's bigger than ourselves. There was something I wanted to tell you. Quick story time. Okay, quick story time. So this is one of my favorite things that have happened in the last couple of weeks. So I know 2 newcomers. One of them has more. It doesn't matter. They're 2 newcomers. They have both been in and out of the room several times. One of them is working what I would consider a solid program. The other one is what I would consider half measuring it. Whatever. We all work a program. They're both working a program. So one day person one says to another person who's working, like who's relatively kind of new-ish, he brings a shirt and he goes, "Do you want to try this shirt? I want to give you this shirt." And the other person says, "That's not my style." Person one, the newcomer, goes, "But all of your clothes are tacky. Why don't you like this shirt?" So person two goes, "Oh, my clothes are tacky. Well, you don't have any taste in clothes in general." So then person two, it goes, "You don't think I have good taste in clothes?" And then just ran with that for the rest of the day, was so hurt. "How could you say that to me? Why would you do that? I can't believe you think that about me." And I'm sitting back and I'm watching the whole time. I'm like, you literally created that situation. You literally insulted someone and then got upset that they insulted you back. That is like the ultimate. I feel like that is like steps 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, like just played out, you know, the like, what is the common denominator there? And I think that is, I feel like that's probably like a more subtle way of the way people can kind of gaslight themselves, right? Because you can convince yourself in that situation, the world is so mean to me.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like when you're doing, the world is so mean to me. Look at what people are saying to me. When you
Awesome.
literally punch someone in the face and they punched you back,
Exactly.
and then you got upset that they hit you back.
It's like that. It's like the whole Karen thing.
What
It's
about
like whole Karen thing when it's like
what?
they go, get all in your face over something or whatever, and then they flip it and turn it around and says, "Oh, I'm being threatened and this and that or whatever, and this person is being aggressive and whatever." And it's like, if you had minded your own business from the beginning, if you hadn't gotten involved, I mean, it's like, but you know, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit.
Well, you know, one of the things I was texting a friend today is like, being human is very hard. Like, at least, you know, like
being human with other people.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't want to be by myself. Like, I have to be very. So I do a lot of work from home. You know what I've realized this year? I cannot be at home by myself for very long. Like, I can do maybe a day. I have no business being at home with my thoughts for longer than 24 hours. I just don't know. Like, I need to get myself to a meeting. I need to connect with someone over the phone, because I just start to believe some of my crazy, you know? Okay. What were you going to say something before we transition?
No, let's transition.
Let's transition.
Can you use that word? Because Bonnie
is not, I think Bonnie may have given me the okay. I don't think Bonnie actually gave me the okay.
No, not at all.
Bonnie is the author of Webster's Dictionary. Bonnie Violet, sorry. So what are some ways, I think, that we should talk a little bit about, like, what are some ways that people can cope with or support themselves if they feel like they're being gaslit, especially in recovery? And I think should talk a little bit about like building self-awareness and resilience. And I think that's something that we get to do when we're doing step work, especially I think when we get to steps 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
So for me, something I do, like, if I find myself in a situation or conversation like that, like I try to remove myself quickly. And then because I have this relationship with the sponsor and then people that I trust, I will bring it to them and I'll try to have a conversation and not bring my bias to it, although it's really tough.
There's a comment coming. Bonnie Violet just said eyes and I don't know what that one is.
Yeah,
the monkey that covers its ears. That's so cute. Hi, Bonnie Violet.
I think getting to a person that I absolutely trust and not taking a poll, but really kind of just like presenting it as objectively as I can to see if what I'm feeling is real. Because usually it's like, if I'm gaslighting myself, if I'm convincing myself of something and I'm in the wrong, then it allows me to kind of like own that and come back and then have the right conversation. Kind of like in the past we talked about, where I was then able to come back and say, okay, yeah, you know, I thought about this and that was just that was my stuff.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a really good example. I think, so building self-awareness and resilience. And I think that's kind of tricky because, at least for me, for this addict alcoholic, I have to be very careful not to gosh, how do I say this without, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, yes, my thoughts and feelings are valid. Yes, my thoughts and feelings are valid. And I also need to fact check my thoughts and feelings. And that's why for me, it's very important to be in relationship with people that like I love and who care about me. I also see a therapist. So I think one of the other kind of suggestions here is like seeking support from your recovery community.
Are you seeing a therapist?
Yeah.
Wink, wink, wink.
What is that?
Are you?
Oh, but he's not my therapist.
Okay, I know.
Yeah. You're so funny. But Steven missed his cue. Like seeing a therapist is really, really. Seeing a therapist is helpful, or like just trusted advisors or mentors or elders, right? Just people that you like love and support that have your back. Engaging in therapy, like I just said that a second ago. Mm-hmm. So I think those are some things. I think with respect to like when I'm thinking about like step work, for example, like I think having a sense of a higher power, right? You don't necessarily have to believe in a Christian God or a God that's associated with any type of religious organization, but something that is bigger than yourself, that is like rejuvenating and life-giving. We have a comment. Jaylon writes, sometimes for me, I think the biggest gaslight is being told to take your inventory when a new situation happens that could possibly be reminiscent of past traumas, but still happened in real time and should be addressed presently. How else would you be able to set healthy boundaries if not to address current issues as they are without being redirected to what your shit is? That is actually, you know what, Jaylon, thank you for this. I actually have an answer to this. Where did I put it? Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Lewis?
No. I was being smart ass.
What were you?
Well, of course you have an answer for it. No, go ahead now.
So,
oh my God.
Okay, it's like 40 minutes into the show.
You know what? Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly.
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to say is, Jaylon, that's such a good point, right? Because, and I think that's a very good example of how like step work can be like weaponized against people. Mm-hmm. One of the things I think about is like, how is someone saying something to me? Is like this supportive, or is this a way of you like creating a tool or weapon to defend yourself, right? Because there has never been a time in my life where a loving, caring person suggested that I do inventory or like step work around something where I felt like, oh, bitch, are you coming for me? Yeah, exactly. Or are you, right? Because that's not life-giving. That's not uplifting. That just feels like somebody else coming up with or dealing with their own shit. So one of the suggestions I wanted to make is, so for me, sometimes I have to like reality test, right? Sometimes I have to run my ideas by other people. And what happens when I do that, like I try not to go to too many places because that can drive me crazy. But what I try to do is I try to get a better sense of like how people are hearing me, right? So oftentimes recently, actually, I'll be in a situation and I feel like I will have handled it shitty, but I'll check in with my sponsor and a friend and other people, and they'll be like, you know what, actually, it sounds like that went well. Mm-hmm. And I still won't be convinced of it, but like that's the kind of stuff that I need to do, like just anything to kind of neutralize like what's coming up for me.
It really helps it, like if you're able to talk to somebody who maybe witnessed it. Yeah, I do that a lot.
Yeah. So the Jaylon, what I wanted to go to is this list of ways that a person can check, like kind of self-correct or like evaluate whether or not they've been gaslit. Again, these are going back to Robin Stern's article. So one of the things that's suggested here is like identify what the problem is. So she writes, recognizing the problem is the first step. Name what is going on between you and the other person, friend, family member, colleague, or boss, right? So like just getting down to the basics, which is, like if someone is saying you should do some inventory work about it, like you should ask yourself, what are we actually talking about here? Like, did you say something offensive and I was offended and I told you that? Like, that's what we're actually talking about here, right? Because if you can distill, like I said before, if you can distill it down to simple parts, then that's the issue here, right? It's not about me doing an inventory. Sorting, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I'm listening.
Yeah, sort out truth from distortion. So she wrote, for example, write down your conversation in a journal so you can take an objective look at it. Or is the conversation veering off from reality into the other person's view? Right? So like what's actually happening versus what that person is saying is happening. Then after you look at your dialogue, write down how you felt, look for signs or repeated denial of your experience. So there are a bunch of really great suggestions. Figure out if you are in a power struggle with the other person, like is there a push and pull? One of my favorite suggestions that she makes is engage in mental exercises to encourage a mindset shift. So visualize yourself without the relationship or continuing it at much more of a distance. Importantly, cast the vision in a positive light, even if it causes you to feel anxiety. Think down the road when you have your own reality, social support, and integrity.
Yeah.
So I love these suggestions.
No, those are good ones. I like
this last one here.
Yeah, I like that, giving yourself permission to
feel.
feel all your feelings.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting too, with all of our experiences there, we bring our past experience with us. And I was talking to a fellow again today. It's like, it's hard not to assume if you've had certain experiences that something that looks like a duck and quacks like a duck is actually a duck.
Right.
And so,
yeah. So I just want to quickly read down the list of other things. And again, so this article, if people want to check it out, it's called Gaslighting. It's called Gaslighting Explained. I think
it's a good article.
It's a very good article.
It got us through.
It did get us. Well, I also had my outline. I'm not giving her all of the credit.
No.
So, you give yourself permission to feel all your feelings, right? Like, feelings don't have to be right or wrong. You can have your feelings. The other thing that I really like that she suggested is focus on feelings instead of right and wrong. So she writes, it's easy to get caught up in wanting to be right or spend endless hours ruminating about who's right, but determining who is right and wrong is less important than how you feel. If your conversation leaves you feeling bad or second guessing yourself, that's what you need to pay attention to. Having a sense of psychological and emotional well-being in a relationship is more important than who is right or wrong in any conversation. So like I said, if these suggestions resonate with you, I would check out her article. It's called Gaslighting Explained by Robin Stern. It was featured in Vox online. It's the Vox. It's not a magazine. It's like an online paper.
Yeah, Vox is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. So let's start landing the plane. We have 3 minutes. Wait, do we have 3 minutes?
Please put your trays upright.
Yeah.
And throw away any trash and please look around your seats.
Yeah, but before we start closing out, I think the key takeaways here are that, in the end, it's not a good feeling. If you're in a gaslighting situation, it isn't a good feeling. Super important to find support from loved ones. Super important for you to honor your thoughts and feelings. Find support where you can get it.
For me, recovery, like even now, it's a gift. If I start to feel discomfort around something, it is my indicator that I get to work on it. Yeah. So it's like, I don't, as much as I have a tendency, and this is a bad habit, to kind of minimalize, I try to choose not to sweep it under the rug and address it head on, so that I figure out whether or not, like you said, it's like, I'm dealing with the feeling first, and what, after it's distilled, as you put it, or boiled down, I can figure out if I was right or if I was wrong. That's not the most important part, but at least I can think about how I'm going to react to it or deal in the future.
Right. I think the goal is to have serenity, peace of mind, and harmony. It isn't to be right or wrong, but it's to live happy, full lives.
Absolutely.
So we should start winding down. I'm going to wait for Stephen.
So the Castro Country Club is a safe and sober community center for all people and a refuge for the LGBTQ recovery community.
We provide programs and services that help people change their lives by supporting personal growth.
Our vision is to reduce the suffering of addiction by connecting people to community opportunity and support.
You can find more information, including all the ways to contact us, at www.castrocountryclub.org/podcast.
And tune in every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time when we go live on our Castro Country Club Facebook and YouTube channels.
Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
And now